All right, hi everyone. Today we are going to look at Seesaw and how we can best utilize it consistently if and when we go back to distance learning, and be prepped if we do go there sometime this year or in the future. But hopefully, I hope you find that in general, learning all of this and how we can do it similarly and consistently will benefit you if you do decide to use it in the classroom, whether we're via distance learning or via just in the classroom. And I know that there are teachers who have used it just as their communication tools. So Krista's going to share with us an overview of what she's doing with Seesaw, and what you can do with Seesaw, and as well as some consistent ways that we want to name certain criteria when you are posting on Seesaw. So if you do have any questions for her, we're going to ask that you either write them down in the chat box or save them and write them down on a piece of notepaper, just so that she can go through everything that she needs to and then answer questions at the end, okay? All righty, sounds good. Krista, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Is there a way like you can see the other people too, or?
I can see everyone. I don't know if your actual computer allows you to do so.
I'm in Chromebooks. Okay, so I can't see anybody. So you'll have to just let me know with your voice if you need me to stop. And if you could just mute maybe everyone but Bernice, mute your microphone. So I'm in Seesaw right now. I think all of you except first grade have a Seesaw classroom, so it should look really familiar. This is my class that just finished. And if you look over here, it says number 1, the Lemur class, and then 1920. That is something that I think is going to be asked of us all to do in the coming year if we are using Seesaw, that you have the name of your class and then the year, the class year. And so I think the reason for that is that I can, once before the new year starts, I'll be able to archive this class and then create a new class. So I'm going to log out. You use the little gear over here to sign out. And when anyone goes to Seesaw, this is what they see. And I'm going to log in right now as a teacher, and I always log in with my Google account. And then I'm going to, we were just here, create a new class. Just for those of you who don't have a classroom yet, this is how you'll do that, or if you're going to make one for next year. For the classroom teachers, I add this number 1 before the name because when they list the class names on the side, they list for the student, they get listed alphabetically. And I found it was easier for parents if I had my class, the classroom, at their main classroom at the top. So if you put a number 1, it puts your class at the top. I also did all caps just as a way to make it stand out. And I'll just do for next year. So this is an empty classroom. The little wrench over here is where you do all of your things to manage your class. You can add teachers to it. I would add, if you have an assistant, you would add an assistant, but you wouldn't have to add any other like specials teachers. They'd have their own classroom. they're going to be logging in with an email. And right here where it says students can see each other's work, I don't know if we want to make this school-wide, but I definitely check that to know, because I don't want the parents to be seeing the other kids' work in the journal and comparing them. I don't use anything with the families or the blogs. I'm gonna go to my other account to look at these other things. So if you're just setting up your class for the first time, you could just do this much and then add students right here. There's a code that you can copy.
And Krista, this is Annabelle, could I just jump in for 1 second?
Sure.
I just wanted to tell teachers, if you could refrain from adding your students to your class for next year, because otherwise they will know who their teacher is for next year, and we don't want them to know until class lists come out.
Right, right.
So you can add a test student, but do not add your actual class list. Sorry, Krista, go ahead.
No, that's important, thanks. So I'm gonna log out again. And I'm gonna log in as a student. I just made up this test Lemur students, and the password to all the Quest students accounts are just Quest Academy, lowercase. This isn't a real email, but it's still, when I do it like this, it still lets me add it as a test student. And then I just put that code right here and click go. And now I have this test student in my test, or my new empty classroom. So if you're fooling around this summer, or you want to start getting your classroom ready for next year, like Annabelle said, you're not going to have your student list on there until they know whose classroom that they're in. So if you create a test student like that, you can use that to fool around and play with, because that really is the best way to learn how to do the stuff on Seesaw, is just playing around and trying things out. So I'm actually going to go back to my class from last year. Oh wait, I'm going to log out and go back as the teacher. Okay. So if I go back, anything that you want to do usually is going to be with this wrench or that little gear. That's where all of the controls are. So I'm going to go back to this wrench. And when you're setting up your class, I'm going to briefly talk about folders and skills, because it's something that you have to set up when you're first starting your class. And I didn't learn about these two things until the very end of the year. And I really wish I had learned about them at the beginning of distance learning, because they're really, really helpful. So folders right here, manage folders. You can create a folder for all of the different subjects or categories, or however you organize the work that your kids do, and color code it. And you're going to see when I show you my schedule that this color code matches the schedule as well, that the parents see. And the folders, if you tag all of your activities or lessons to a folder.
I think Krista, your volume cut out. I'm gonna wait till she gets back. She, just so you know, I know what she's talking about. She's saying that she's matching. Oh, Krista,
Yeah.
Krista, you cut out really quickly. You cut out right before you went to this screen. If you can repeat that really quickly.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, these are the skills, and I've entered in the things that I assess students on based on the junior kindergarten progress report. These are the things they're assessed on. So you can take each one and add it as a skill. And then when you create a lesson or activity, tag those skills to the lesson. So when you approve it, you can give them a grade. But I've based mine on 4. I think it defaults to 5 since we use 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a different color. So when you're first starting, I'm just recommending, I mean, it's kind of an advanced feature, but it really is worth looking into when you're first setting up your class. So over here on these tabs, there's journals, activities, inbox, and skills. The journal is all the things that your students have submitted to you. This is their work. So right now I'm looking at the class journal, which is just an endless list of things. But if I want to pick one student, I could pick Adia, and then I'm going to see all of the things that just Adia has submitted to me. Activities shows you what you have assigned to the class. And this is, I think, the biggest flaw of Seesaw is this activities tab is not searchable, and it is literally just an endless stream. There's no way to like organize it or search through it. As you add activities, they just get put to the top of the queue and then continue to just stack on top of each other until you archive the activity. So I have just like, it goes on and on and on through basically all of remote learning. And when you see it from the student's point of view, once they complete an activity and they add a response, it disappears from their queue. But it just doesn't disappear from your queue. I'm looking at it as a teacher. Inbox is where you can send messages to everyone, and these don't disappear. So I use the inbox to send my morning message and daily schedule because I knew these were always going to be here, and the parents and the students can refer to them whenever they want. So since my students are mostly not reading, I would send every morning a video for them to see. And then I would add a schedule for the parents to see. So the kids would watch the video and I would tell them, and I would make it really funny so that they would want to watch it. And then I would tell them all the things they have to do. And then the parents would click on this schedule and print it. Most of them would print it and then cross things out during the day as they do it. And this is where you can see it's color coded to match those folders that I had set up as well. And I attached this as a link, which I'll show you in a second, because I found a lot of parents complained that I did not attach Google Docs as a link, they weren't able to print them. So I just recommend, if it's anything that you want someone to print, that you attach it as a link to the Google Drive. And then the last tab over here, skills, is the skills that I showed you before. I don't have a lot of information. I wish I did, because I didn't really start doing this until the last week of remote learning. But I'm just wishing I had, because it would have been so much easier to do assessments if I had the, hang on. If I had this information, hang on, here we go. It's kind of cumbersome because like you have to scroll over and the scroll is way down on the bottom. It's also really difficult to scroll around on Chromebooks, I find. So here's one with a lot. So here's a math skill, uses fingers and manipulative. So I have 5 things for this student for that. So you see right here where it says 4-star. So that's the skill, and she got 4. That's the highest that you can get. And I'll just show you since I'm here. So this was a sheet, an activity that was, it was basically, this was like a worksheet that was, a link was attached and they printed it and she did it. And then Mrs. Swanson, she was in charge of approving all of the math assignments. So she wrote wow as one form of a response. And then we always, and I'm going to talk about this a lot, it's so important, I think, to always add an audio response.
Hello, Miss Adia. I am so impressed with you filling out the sheets. So I was wondering, was this too easy?
So she can give her feedback and ask her a question, and then Adia can respond back.
Hi, Miss Swanson. It was just right. And I used my fingers to
So this all came from that skills tab right over here. So I'm going to go back to activities. This add button right here, the first option that they give you is post student work. I do not use this option. If you do post the student work, it posts to the student's journal that they'll see, and it just stays there forever. And I didn't really personally have a use for that. You can post something to all of the students, or you can pick individual students if you want. But I mostly used assign activity and send announcement. So to send an announcement is what goes to that inbox where I sent them their morning message and the daily schedule. It doesn't give you an option to send it to individual students' announcements. It just says to go to all students. I didn't use this family members function. I just sent it to students because my students are so young that their parents were reading the announcements for them. So if you have older students who aren't necessarily reading their child's messages, then I guess the family function would be good for you. But this assign activity, it's kind of deceiving because if you want to create an activity, you click on assign activity. They don't have a so it seems like, oh, well, I don't want to assign something I don't already have, but that's what you click to get to your activity library. And this is the library. So if you don't have anything already created, it defaults to this over here, community. And the community is where you can search through all kinds of already created Seesaw activities. Maybe there's something that you can use, and you can use them. It's part of what you get with Seesaw. I haven't really used any, but there's some that are really, looking at it right now, some of them look actually really fun. And also, it's kind of cool to look at them and learn ways that other teachers are using the functions, because there's so many different ways to create an activity. So it's cool to just look at how other people are doing it. This school button, I do not currently have anything in here, but this seems something that would be useful too. You can share activities that you create with the rest of the teachers at Quest, and then they get put organized here into the school tab. But mostly you're going to be using my library. That's where all of yours will go. They give you 10 collections where you can organize your activities. I wish that they gave you more, because I had to sort of consolidate, and I probably could come up with 10 more collections to help me to organize. But so you have to carefully pick 10 ways that you want to organize your activities, that's going to make it useful for you to find things, because otherwise they're just in a big, if you do view all, they're just in a big mass. You can search though. I wish they had this search button in the for the activity feed for the kids, but they have it for here for us. So I'm going to just show you some examples of an activity, because there's so many, like I said, so many different ways to create one. This is the most straightforward one, where it's just an attachment that they print. So if I scanned in some drawing instructions, and since I want them to print this, I made it as a link to on Google Doc, because if I created it as just an attachment within Seesaw, for some reason they're not able to print it. So since my students aren't reading, I always have written instructions, and then I always have also an audio instruction. Print or view these instructions on your computer on how to draw a jellyfish. Jellyfish come in. Let's see. Here's one that's just a video, and this is also just a link. We're learning about jellyfish right now. The kids really like videos. Those are just sort of straightforward ones. Let's see, here's one. Trying to find one with a response. Okay. So this is one where the kids respond in a template. I wonder if they'll let me here. Since I'm in an activity, they won't, I don't think it'll, here, hang on. So if you want the kids to respond in Seesaw, you can create a template that they can edit. So this is a math activity. So I just uploaded a picture with different whales, and then they need to, I'm teaching them, you know, how to tell which number is the largest number by looking at the biggest number. So they have, the instructions were to, you know, order the numbers, so they can click on this and then move it over here and find the next one. And then once they have them how they want them, they click submit, and then it gets sent to me, and then I can give them feedback on.
Krista? I'll wait till she comes back.
You know, add them where you want.
We couldn't hear you for a second, but I think we got it, Krista.
Oh, okay. And then if you use this tool, the students are able to move those items around. There's so many possibilities with that. Okay, so I'm going to go up to create an activity. Let's see. Create a new activity.
Oh, no, no.
No.
And so the naming, this is something that is going to be different. So I'm going to actually go back to my, before I show you this, because we're going to have a naming convention I go back to class. Okay, so over here are activities that I have assigned. And if you look, they all in the beginning say Friday, comma, May 29th. And Bernice thought of this, and this was such a clever idea. I actually did not do this when I was remote teaching, and I wish that I had. But if you add the date in that format with a semicolon before the title of your activity, then that organizes it for the parents of all the things that they have for that day that matches with the schedule that I sent them. So now here starts Thursday. Because like I said, they all just kind of get stacked on top of each other.
And that is one thing, and I'm going to ask Krista. Actually, I'll probably work on it myself too. But this is one of the consistent things that we're asking teachers to make sure that they do when creating assignments is organizing it by date and title of the assignment, so that it is most easy for our parents to navigate and organize. So as Krista is going over all of this, just know that we'll send out a little cheat sheet of all the things that we need. Teachers to do consistently also. Thanks, Krista. Sorry.
Sure. So when I'm going to create an activity, I want to, if it's something that you're only going to use for that day, you could start with that date. But if it's something like you want to keep around and you might use another year, you can just give it a regular title, and then when you assign it, it assigns a copy of that activity, so you can add the date to the copy of it. But I'll just add what's today's, June 17th? 18th. Wait, we're gonna start with the Thursday, comma, June 18th. So Bernice, do you agree, like, is that the format that we should use?
Mm-hmm. Yep, always start with the date, and that looks just greater than the title of your activity.
Just like that. Okay. So test activity. I'll just, test, like you can write some instructions, and then this is how you would add. And at any opportunity that you can add your voice or your face to any of these activities, I highly recommend it. It makes the kids want to do the work, and they are more likely to listen to your instructions than read it. So this is a test. I'm telling you what to do. Then you just hit plus. And then if you're like, oh, that was so stupid, I sounded awful, you can just, hit the garbage can, which, believe me, I do like all the time, and say, okay, this is my second go of my instruction test. And then here, they give you so many different options, like I was saying, for how to attach your activity. And I think this would be like what works best for you. The only restriction I would say is if it's something they're going to print, use the link. But otherwise, this would be like, usually I'm uploading things from my Drive. So like, here's that whale. And then I just hit yes. And if I just wanted to have this picture of the whale, I could hit plus. But if I wanted to add something, I can even add instructions here. I could say, I'd like you to tell me what kind of whale these are. So start at the top and then either send me a video or your voice and tell me what types of whales I have stacked here.
Hey, Krista, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay, when I'm uploading the pictures, it says you can only upload like one PDF. And then if you want to upload a bunch of pictures, it all comes like on the side, picture after picture after picture, whereas on Google Docs, you can write a text and then put a picture, then text and a picture. Is there a way around that with Seesaw?
Well, right here, I can add, whoops. You can add more. Hang on. I guess you can't with this one. You can't, because this picture I'm adding right now is just kind of a like an example. It's what shows up on their activity image. But if you click add template, and then I add photos, okay, so I'll add like a bunch of photos. Select. I can add multiple photos, and I think it just, or photos, and I think you can add more files, like not just photos. It could be a PDF.
What I'm asking you is, right, it'll put the photos, you'd open it up, the first one, and click on the second and third one. But in Google Docs, you can have the picture and then put a text underneath it, then have another picture and a text underneath. Is that possible to do? I couldn't figure that out for this.
I'm not sure. I'll look into it.
It sounds like it might be easier, Gary, for you just to attach your Google Doc onto the assignment.
My mentor told me I shouldn't do that.
So here's the template with, so if you add multiple photos, they get sort of stacked over here, and you can keep, it said you can add up to 10, I think.
Right.
And then if you want to add text like here, like, what do you think the tiger will do? Then I can add more, like step things that they can respond to each page. Okay. Save. Okay, so I have this weird activity, and if I hit assign, it asks me which class I want to add it to. So I'm going to assign it to my test class. And assuming I had a whole list of students here, if you want to assign it to everybody, you can do that. Or if you want to differentiate and say, oh, I only want to send this to this student, you can do that. Just select whoever you want to get it. And now I'm looking at this as a teacher, so this is showing me in the activity feed all the things that I currently have assigned to people. And you can tell if you click right here, assigned to who, and it has the test student. And when you are looking at this, I'll show you in my other class, it shows you pictures of all the students who have it and who's responded to you and who hasn't responded to you. So if I go to my old class, let's see. Okay. So I clicked on this activity, and it shows me here who's responded, who hasn't responded, and then also how they've responded. Because they like to respond in different ways, however they're comfortable. So Adia and Paxton love making videos, so they usually respond with videos. It looks like Anish and Daviani have, when it's just like blank note paper like that, that's an audio response, I think. And then Kendall and Krishna dictated to their parents, and they typed it for them.
The big numbers are 5.5, 1 or 5,
And then I always give her feedback. Whoops. Correct. You are correct. And then, let's see, Anish. So he did an audio response, so you'll get this big long line.
5.5 has the most. 7.5 has the most.
And then I always respond. You are correct, Anish. 5 and Summer 5. And then there's some kids who just aren't comfortable on the video or with their voice, and they just prefer to have someone write. And that's fine too, as long as they're, you know, giving me a response. And you can see I attached this to this folder calendar. So if I go back to journals, just to look at that folders again, right here, here's a little folder. If I click on that, it gives me all of my folders, and then it tells me, I wasn't doing this the whole time, so I don't have a lot of info in there, but it tells me how many items I have in each one. But I think it's more useful to look at it by student. So if I look at Adia's journal and I click on her folders, like I could go say, okay, I want to see her handwriting. And then it would show me, if I had been doing this all along, I could have gone all the way back and just looked at how her handwriting had progressed, you know, since we started distance learning, which I think is so helpful. That's why I really like these folders. So when we give feedback for handwriting, they are printing the paper, and then we're adding the yellow means are what we're editing, we're writing back on it. And then we have to also give the audio response.
Hi, Adia. Your last phone number, the 1234, look beautiful. Your middle one, you forgot a number. You forgot the 8s.
So then we can give feedback, and that makes it really effective. Okay, let's see.
Krista,
Yeah?
can I ask you a question about the assignment? So when you were creating the assignment, because I was doing it all along, but I did it always the same, where I attached the video because there was only one attachment that you can do in the video part. But now I see that you were able to add like those pictures or attachments there. So is that where you added stuff for the students to print out? Because what I was
Right.
doing,
If it was something I wanted them to print out, like this activity was, hang on. Trying to find one that's printed.
see, the thing is, I always had the video, so it's like I couldn't really put an attachment for printing out.
Oh,
So what
I
I
know,
would
I see
do-
what you mean. Right.
So what I did was I would put a link, but then the parents would be trying to open the link, and then they have to ask for permission, and it was just like this.
Oh, right.
Just circle.
Well, if you do attach something as a link, you just have to be like militantly like routine about changing the permissions. Like that will always get you if you forget to change the permission where that anyone can access the link, then nobody can get to it, so it's frustrating. So just put like 10 post-it reminders all over the place, like change the permission. Because I add so many things that I add as a link, and you really have to just remember to change the permissions. But with Seesaw, they do not let you always add multiple things, so you have to sort of think about it in a different way. as grouping. So I'm showing you right here where it says Heidi Song A and then Z to A Countdown A. These two things go together. This is really one activity, but the Seesaw doesn't really make it easy for you to add all of this information into one activity. So I created as two different activities, but then when you assign it, assign them one right after another so that they go together. And when you add activities, it adds them right on top of the stack. So whenever I added the activities for the day, whatever I wanted students to see first, I would do last. So I had to submit things backwards. So if you look, these are all like Friday.
Uh-huh.
So I look at my schedule and I think, okay, what is the most important thing that I want them to see? And then I would sort of list out how I wanted to add them to Flipgrid so that they can see them in a way that makes sense. And then if I had anything grouped together like these, then I would just make sure I put them next to each other. So like this was a link to a video that they need to watch first. Hang on.
And while you're working on that, Krista, Trish
Yeah.
did bring up a good point that there are a lot of different shortcuts and I'll share that a doc with you with all the shortcuts. If you do paste, if you do want to add extra links, you can add kind of a shortcut. It's like, I think it's : link : and then you can paste extra links into your instructions. I think that's something maybe you haven't discovered yet, but there are a bunch of different shortcuts.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Add to that, which is really helpful. Thanks, Trish, for sharing that.
So they would watch the video first and then they would click on this one and it would be this is like they knew, okay, and then they had to write all the words they could think of that start with A. So they knew that those go together. Does that answer your question, Lorena?
Well, I was just wondering, like, when you needed them to print something out, did you put it in that template place? Like, was that the way you did it, or did you add it as a link? Like,
No,
how
I
did
added
you?
it as a link. So here, I'll go back to add activity.
Because I did the video, but then in my instructions, I would say print, and then I would add the link, and then I put the title, and then add the link.
Okay.
So it was in the
I wouldn't
instructions.
add it down here on template. I would add it right here with multimedia instructions or example. And if you're adding a video, I always added a video as a link because then I didn't have a time constraint that Seesaw has. I think I forget how many minutes, but there's a certain minute time constraint on the videos that you can add here. If I click video and then it's gonna just record me, or if I upload it. So if you upload or you record, you have a time restraint. But if you create a video and you save it to your Google Drive and you attach it as a link, it can be as long as you want.
Yeah. So yeah, I added the video, and it was on YouTube. So I added the video as a link.
Yeah, perfect.
So
yeah,
I did that.
Video, right. You'd add it as a link. You just type it in here.
Yeah. So that I would do that. But as far as like if they had like 3 or 4 printouts to look at, they would be just that URL in the instructions. So what I'm seeing is that you can add it in the template for student resources instead of what I did in the instructions.
I think you could. You could attach the link as a video up here, and then however the kids are responding, you attach as the template.
Okay, and from that template, the kids can print, or no? Whatever photos and stuff you put there, the kids can print it, or no?
Let me see. Let me find one.
I think, maybe that's a good question for later because I do want us to end in about 6 minutes.
Sorry.
I just want to have us end by 11, if that's okay, Krista. Sorry.
Yeah. What time is it? Okay. So I'm going to I'm actually gonna log out and go in as a student. Or you know what? Before I
It'd be
do that,
great for them to see all of the classes on the side, Krista.
yeah, you're right. But first, I just want to show you the approving. So when you click on the journal, you get this red bar down here of any work that you have to approve.
Once upon a time, there's a lonely kid.
Let me find a quicker. That sounds like a long one. Okay, so here's one. He sent me this great drawing of a bluegill. I always click like because they like seeing that. And then comment. You can type something. If something I wanted to send to, oops, sorry, just the parents to see, I had kind of as my benefit that most of them weren't really reading. So if I wanted to have a comment for just the parents, I would write it here. But then usually I would just hit the microphone and respond. Hey, Anish, your bluegill looks like it's gonna leap right off the page. I love how you blended the colors on the bottom and you added its habitat and food for it. Well done, Anish. It's gonna look great in your lake life book. And then if you don't like it, after it processes, you can always throw it in the garbage or you just click approve. But that only approves the comments. If you want to approve the lesson, you have to hit this approve button up here. And then that disappears from my list. And then the student, like Anish, now a message will pop up on his iPad that he has a message from me. So I am going to sign out and sign in as a student. So this was Anish that I just sent him that message. So I think that shows up here in his notifications. Yeah, see, I just added a voice comment. So if I go to over here on Anish's tab, you can see all of the classes that he is currently a part of. And so this is you can see how I have that number 1 that puts it up to the top. If I didn't have the number 1 first, it would, go alphabetically wherever, I'm not sure where it would be. So I don't know if everyone needs to do that, but or if it's okay that I keep doing that, because I know that we do want to have these consistent, right, Bernice? And should the specials teachers start with the name of the classroom and then the subject?
I, it's not, I'm not remembering what we decided, but I do believe, and I will share with everyone how we would like for you to title your classroom. I do believe it's classroom name, or I'm pretty sure it's like Lemur's Art 2021, something like that.
Oh, right, with the year. So it would say like Lemur's Drama 2021.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I'll share that out.
So they can toggle here to whatever their classes that they are. This is the journal, so this is work that's already been responded. So you can see the art class, how must not have that, where when I was setting up the class initially and I set the can see other student work to no. So in the specials, perhaps you do want them to see each other's work. I can see how maybe in specials class that would be helpful. So even though I'm logged in as a niche right now, I can see Adia's and Kendall's work as well. Whereas if I go to the Lemur class, Anish is only going to see his own work in the journal. So that might be something I don't know if that needs to be consistent, or is that okay for people to decide?
I think it would, and I think we can talk to the specialist teachers about that. I do see that the benefits of having them see each other's work, but then again, it does also mess with the view, and then it could tend to overlap a little bit. So I'll talk to the specialist teachers about that. But I think what's also, go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, what?
No, I was just going to say, I think what's really nice about Seesaw and Google Classroom also is that you can, if there's a certain picture that you want to share with all of your grade level, that you can assign an assignment to multiple classrooms. Brenda just mentioned that the kids did like commenting on each other's work. So maybe that's something that specialist teachers will all do is allow them to see each other's work. Krista, is there one last thing that you wanted to add just because we're kind of
yeah, I think I can finish here. Awesome. So now should I, because I don't see everybody, so I guess if you have a question, I don't know if you're raising your hand or should I stop presenting?
Yeah, you can end your share screen, and then I'm going to actually stop the recording in just a minute. So thank you so much, Krista, for doing all of that. If you did, there's quite a few comments in the comments section if everyone wants to take a look. Otherwise, Krista, you said you had a couple minutes. I have to run right now to get to another place, but I will stop recording.